Hello, and thank you for joining me here at Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura, and I am so excited for today's video. It is all about Nicolas Cage. So at the beginning of this month, I read Age of Cage by Keith Phipps. Actually, I didn't read it. I listened to it on Audible, which I would highly recommend the audiobook for. And by the way, while we're talking about Audible, I have an affiliate link, which I will share down below. And if you guys want to sign up for Audible, you can get your first book for free. And it also helps me out if you use my link, and any money I make with this YouTube channel, it'll all just go back into the channel. But Audible is amazing. I listen to audiobooks all the time. Not only does Audible have thousands of titles, but it also has podcasts and all sorts of other productions. So if you have never tried it, you should definitely check it out. And like I said, you'll get your first book for free. So use that link down below. Age of Cage was a great audiobook. I really enjoyed it. It is not a biography, but as you can see in the title, as you can see in the subtitle, it is 4 decades of Hollywood through one singular career. So we just follow Cage's filmography, and by seeing the movies he's made, you also see just how Hollywood has changed through the decades. So I would recommend this. I mean, if you're a fan of Nicolas Cage, but also just like any film buff, anyone who's into Hollywood history, I think you would love this book. And it was very informative and entertaining. And it also makes you appreciate Nicolas Cage and all the movies he's done. And it also makes you realize just how unique Nicolas Cage is as an actor, which I think we're all aware that how Nicolas Cage is just so, I don't know, he's such an interesting actor, right? Everybody knows who he is, even people who aren't like into movies. They still know who Nicolas Cage is because he has made that big of an impact on our society. But yeah, and he's an incredible actor. And so, like I said, I finished that at the beginning of this month, and then finishing that book combined with the fact that I knew there was a new Nicolas Cage movie coming out at the end of this month where he plays himself, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Those two things, because there were movies I hadn't seen before that he talks about in Age of Cage that I was like, man, I need to see more Nicolas Cage movies. So I decided to do a Nicolas Cage movie marathon. And originally I was going to do a 24-hour movie marathon where I just watch, 10-ish Nicolas Cage movies over the course of 24 hours. But then I was like, let's get real, Laura. You are not going to be able to stay up throughout the night. And I also didn't really want to stay up throughout the night. I really value my sleep. So I decided I didn't want to do it that way. And then I was like, well, I'll just do it 12 hours, like all in one day. But then I would only be able to watch like 5 or 6 movies. So I ended up deciding that the best way to do this would be to watch 1 movie a day for 10 days leading up to the release of Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So that's what I have done the last 10 days. I watched 1 Nicolas Cage movie a day. And honestly, it took more time out of my day than I thought. Like my free time, I prioritized getting in my Nicolas Cage movie for the day. And it definitely cut into my reading, but I have no regrets. It was such a fun journey and I loved it. And I wanted to mention real fast some movies which will be like glaringly missing from this list. So I wanted to explain how I chose the movies I watched. And basically, they're movies that I had either never seen before or that I hadn't seen in a really long time. So for example, Leaving Las Vegas is one that is not on this list. And that one, I actually have not seen that yet. But I was planning on doing a book verse movie for that one. And so I'm going to save watching that for when I do a book verse movie for it. I've already read the book. I read it last year. And even though it was a great book, if you're aware with the story, like the book is very depressing and difficult to read at times. And at that time, I was not ready to see what I read in the book played out in a movie. And I'm still not quite ready. So I am going to watch it. I just am waiting till I'm more ready to watch it, I guess, because it is very heavy. Also, Pig is not on this list, but that is because I have seen Pig multiple times already. It came out last year, but it is incredible. If you have not seen Pig, you have to watch it. I loved it so much. It is fantastic. I also did not watch Bringing Out the Dead, which isn't a Cage movie a lot of people talk about. However, it is one he mentioned on his Reddit Ask Me Anything that he did when he was talked about. Whenever people asked a question about some of his favorite movies he's done, the 3 he mentioned would be Bringing Out the Dead, Leaving Las Vegas, and Pig. And all 3 of those are not in this movie marathon. But Bringing Out the Dead, again, is based on a book, so I'm saving that for when I read the book. As well as Matchstick Men, that is a fantastic movie, and I saw that not that long ago because I did a book first movie for it, so I will link to my book first movie if you want to see how Matchstick Men, the movie, compares to the book. And then, National Treasure, I've seen those before too, so yeah, basically any movies that are like, how could that not be on your movie marathon? If it's not there, it's because I've either watched it too recently and I wanted to use this time to watch movies I had not seen before, or or it's one that I'm planning on doing a book versus movie for, so I'm just saving it for later. So yeah, anyway, I guess that wraps it up on this intro. I will have chapters down below if you want to jump around to any particular movie. I mean, obviously I would love it if you just watched the video all the way through, but I will have chapters if that is what you are interested in. And I hope you guys enjoy this video. And yeah, let's get to the movie marathon. So I just finished watching the first movie on my Nicolas Cage movie marathon list, and that was Raising Arizona, which was in 1987, and it was directed and written by the Coen brothers, and this was only their second movie. And I knew it was Coen brothers, of course, but I didn't realize how early it was in their career. And Nicolas Cage himself was like 23 when he filmed this. He was so young. I meant to film a clip before watching the movie, like introducing the movie and why I'm choosing to watch it, but I forgot to do that. I'll do that for future movies though in this video. But anyway, I have seen this one before, however, it was so long ago now. I saw it for the first time in the early 2000s when I was living in Arizona with my family. And I think this is the movie that got us into Nicolas Cage because we watched a lot of Cage movies growing up, and I think this might have been like the first one, and we rented it because it was Raising Arizona and we were living in Arizona. Which, by the way, I'm specifically wearing an Arizona shirt for this video, and I even have Arizona earrings. But anyway, to talk about Arizona, I was looking up the filming locations for this movie, and it is, you know, like Scottsdale, Tempe, that area. But then another location that I mentioned was Dudleyville, Arizona, which I would imagine no one watching this video has heard of Dudleyville, Arizona, but it is where I lived for 6 years of my life. It is like even less of a town now than it was then, because I went and visited a few years ago, but there's like nothing there. And you have to drive like 30 minutes to get to the nearest school and grocery store and stuff. But some of the surrounding cities or towns, like Kearney is another very small town, but that's where we went to school. And then it's also near like Globe and Superior. So it's kind of that area if you are familiar with Arizona, but it's in between Tucson and Phoenix. Anyway, when I saw that listed as a filming location, like I could not believe it. I was so shocked. So part of me was like, is that even true? But Dudleyville is such a tiny nothing town that who would think to lie and list that as a filming location, right? There's so few people who live in Dudleyville, like 1 of the 10 people who live there must have written that in. Or it was true and it really was filmed there. Maybe one of the random road scenes when they needed a big empty desert, maybe that was Dudleyville, I don't know. Anyway, that was a crazy coincidence. And another crazy coincidence is that this movie, in the beginning part, it tells you like the day of the week and the date that things are taking place. I am recording this. I watched this movie on Wednesday, April 13th. And this movie, it says it takes place Wednesday, April 12th. So how wild is that? But anyway, to get into a synopsis or a summary for this movie, it is about H.I. and his wife Ed, short for Edwina, who want to have children. However, Ed, is barren, and so they can't have kids, and so they decide to steal one of the quintuplets that have been born to this prominent Arizona salesman. So they kidnap one of the babies, and then of course, you know, wildness ensues. And I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, I'd seen it before, but I didn't remember a lot of it. You know, like the bike rider, Leonard Smalls, I think was his character name, like the bike rider from hell, kind of. Like I totally forgot about his character. And I had even forgot that John Goodman was in this movie. We also have a young Frances McDormand who is in a very small role, but you get great performances from everybody. It is just so fun and wild and wacky and sweet and very entertaining. So I would definitely highly recommend this. I think it is if you're familiar with the Coen brother comedies, then like this, going into this, you'll get exactly what you're wanting. Meaning like that quirkiness and like the weirdness and the, is not a straightforward comedy necessarily, and I think that's why my family liked it back in the day, was because it was just so random and weird. And as far as other Coen brother movies go, this one, I was getting like Fantastic Mr. Fox vibes. Like I feel like the two of them have like a similar vibe to it. So I think if you like Fantastic Mr. Fox, you should check out this one because they are I mean, the storylines aren't similar, but just the vibe was very similar. And yeah, Nicolas Cage is fantastic. Holly Hunter is wonderful. Everybody, like John Goodman, the guy who plays Nathan Arizona, which is the guy whose child is kidnapped. I think Trey Williams was his name. I loved him. He had some great scenes. So yeah, this was a great way to kick off my Nicolas Cage movie marathon. I really enjoyed this one. I would highly recommend it if you have not seen it. And yeah, this was the Coen brothers' second movie. Their first movie was called Blood Simple. I haven't seen it, but I think it was like a darker movie. And so they made Raising Arizona because they wanted to do something that was just the polar opposite. And yeah, this movie is very fun, very lighthearted, but very sweet and endearing and funny and silly. I loved it. So I'll just end it with that, and I will check in with you tomorrow when I am watching the next movie from my Nicolas Cage list. Okay, so here we are. I just watched my second movie, and that was Vampire's Kiss from 1988, so just a year after Raising Arizona. And I posted on my Instagram that I was going to be doing this Nicolas Cage movie marathon, and there were some people who gave their recommendations, and so if someone mentioned a movie that I am watching, I wanted to mention them. And Pepper's Pages had mentioned Vampire's Kiss, and she was the only one. She also has a YouTube channel, so you should check her out. I will link to her. But this one was already on the list before she recommended it because this is one I've been meaning to watch for like over a year now, but I just kept putting it off. And then when I read Age of Cage, he actually talks about this movie fairly in depth because it was a big movie for Nicolas Cage's career and his acting. And when he talks about it, he says like the plot of the movie and like the ending. He tells you how it ends. And so as I was listening, because I listened to Age of Cage on Audible, and so I could have muted it or turned it down or fast forwarded. But anyway, so I went into this movie already knowing the ending. But I guess that's my own fault because I've been meaning to watch this movie for so long. So anyway, this movie was an experience. And it's funny because I went into it knowing the premise and even knowing the ending, and knowing that so many memes and images from Nicolas Cage come from this movie because his character is just so wild. And even still with all of that knowledge going into it, it was still, this movie, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, but it is definitely one that should be watched. And the basic premise is we have Nicolas Cage who plays Peter, who is the guy who is mentally unstable. He's a businessman. He spends his night like going out to the clubs, and then he is kind of a jerk at work. Not kind of, he is. Anyway, he thinks he gets bit by a bat, and he thinks he meets this woman who's a vampire, and he thinks that he himself is turning into a vampire. And yeah, there were just so many scenes. Like, this is definitely a dark comedy because there are so many comedic moments, but then there's other moments where it's like, wow, like that's serious. But for one, Nicolas Cage has like a weird accent in this movie, and it is on purpose, and it's like his character has like almost this British accent. And I read that Nicolas Cage had the accent be stronger when the character of Peter was like trying to seem impressive and be more than he is, kind of a thing. Like, I just want to mention a few scenes, for example. I don't want to give spoilers, so I'll try to be vague if it involves spoilers, but the scene when he is saying the ABCs and then goes on to say about how he's never misfiled anything. And then the scene when he's in the bathroom at work and he can't see his reflection in the mirror and he starts freaking out, and there's another guy in the bathroom. And then the scene when he is talking to Alva, one of the secretaries, like the main secretary that he's always getting on and harassing, and he's telling her about how like she's, on the totem pole, she's the lowest. And that's the scene where he has like the crazy eyes that people have turned into a meme, and that scene was very memorable. And then there's a part in the end that I also thought was hilarious, but I don't want to get too detailed because it's sort of a spoiler, but the ending is also like kind of sad. You do start to feel sorry for this character because clearly he is mentally unstable. He does horrible things, but you also feel bad for him because he's just not all there. And he also was very, he reminded me of Renfield, the character Renfield from Dracula. Like, he reminded me of that character from the book, but also from Dracula Dead and Loving It, which is a comedy. I don't know if Nicolas Cage was inspired at all by that character, but there were certain things that definitely made me think of the Renfield in Dracula Dead and Loving It. And then there's also scenes where he's trying to mimic Nosferatu from that movie from the 1920s. And yeah, this movie, Nicolas Cage just really let loose. He's full Cage in this movie, just very, these extreme over-the-top reactions and these facial expressions and these movements and these like loud outbursts. And yeah, it's, like I said, I feel like I have just so many thoughts about this. But all in all, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Raising Arizona was also 5 stars. That one was great too, which both of these movies are wacky, but in different ways. Anyway, I'm gonna try to keep these pretty brief, even if I just talk about a movie for 5 minutes. When, if I'm talking about 10 movies, then that starts to add up. So I want to try to keep these concise as possible. Anyway, so that's Vampire's Kiss, my second movie on the list. And the next movie I'll be covering is Face Off, which is one I've seen before, but it's been like 10 years. And at the time, I remember thinking it was too over the top, which classic Nicolas Cage being over the top, right? But I'm looking forward to watching it a second time because there are people who love this movie. Maybe it is because it's so ridiculous and over the top, but anyway, really looking forward to seeing that one. And so yeah, next time you see me, that is the movie I will be talking about. All right, so I just watched Face Off, which is from 1997. Yeah, 97, directed by John Woo, and this of course stars Nicolas Cage alongside John Travolta. And this is an action movie, but what makes this more intriguing, I think, than your run-of-the-mill action movie is that Cage starts out as the villain and Travolta is the hero, but then like 30, 45 minutes in, they switch faces. And so then you have Cage portraying the hero who is trapped in the villain's body, and then Travolta vice versa. And so it just makes for a very unique premise, right? And I had so much fun with this movie. I don't know what, I think when I tried watching this in 2010, I think I was taking it too seriously, and this is definitely a movie that is meant to be fun. And the performances are definitely what stand out from this, from Travolta and Cage. Both of them, I just loved watching them both. Travolta, like him portraying Cage, the villain, when he's stuck in Travolta's body was just so fun. Like fun is the best word for this movie. And I will say action movies aren't like my preferred movie. And so there's a number of action scenes, and particularly there's a shootout that happens like, 30 minutes before the end. And then there's another chase scene, fight scene that happens at the end. And there's also a scene in the beginning too, but the beginning scene was fine. It's just those last two ones, I thought both of those just dragged out too much. So for my own personal preference, I get bored when action scenes go on for what feels like forever. And so for that reason, I'm giving this 4 stars. And yeah, the key is to go into this movie and not take it too seriously, because you can tell the actors are just enjoying this and having fun with it. And I mean, the script, like the plot of the story, it's fine. And I don't go into action movies expecting an amazing plot and script. Yeah, I think I just went into this with a better mind frame than I did back in the day. And there was a lot I had forgotten about because it's been, so long since I'd seen it last. So there were a few things I'd remembered, but I'm definitely glad I revisited this one, really enjoyed it. And even if you're not a fan of action movies, this one, like I said, is just such a unique action movie. And watch it for the performances of Travolta and Cage. So yeah, really love this one. Next up on the list is Con Air from 1997, so from the same year. This one, I may have seen this one. Like I said, back in the early 2000s, my family watched a lot of Nicolas Cage movies, and this one seems familiar, but it's basically like brand new to me because I remember basically nothing. So yeah, I'm excited to watch this one. It's another action flick, so we'll see. But yeah, see you after I watch that one. So Con Air is now done and dusted. There is a YouTuber, a booktuber, who says that phrase a lot, but now I can't think of who it is. Anyway, I watched Con Air. So Con Air is from 1997, and a few people recommended this one. It was already on my list anyway, but my dad suggested this one along with Joseph on Instagram. I should have got your last name, I'm sorry. And then also JJ Likes Movies on Instagram. She did a Nicolas Cage theme like for a week, and she covered this one and she enjoyed it, and so that was another reason why I had it on the list. But this one was good. I enjoyed it for what it was. Again, action movies aren't my favorite, but this was entertaining, it was exciting, you get great performances from an all-star cast. It has John Cusack, who I'm personally a fan of, and he has classic John Cusack in a lot of these scenes and a lot of the lines he delivers, so I enjoyed that. John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, which Steve Buscemi's stuff, I just wasn't a fan of his character at all. I thought he would be more comedic, and maybe he's supposed to be. Like, I don't think so though. I don't know. I wasn't a fan of his character and how things ended up with him. We also have Danny Trejo, not a fan of his character at all. I felt like he was totally unnecessary. But regardless, it was still entertaining and I enjoyed watching it, even though action movies aren't my favorite. Yeah, this was a good one. And also the premise of this is Nicolas Cage is a man who was put in prison. He's just wrong place, wrong time. So he's in prison though, but he's on parole. And then he's on a plane where he's going to be heading home to his wife and child. And the plane is taking a bunch of convicts to this new maximum security prison. And of course, the convicts take over the plane. Also, Dave Chappelle was in this, and I enjoyed him. I wish he had been in more. Anyhow, so that's the premise. And again, same with Face Off, there was an action scene at the end, like this final chase scene, and I was like, come on, like, we can wrap this up now. But again, I'm sure there's people who absolutely love the final chase scene. So it's just personal preference, really. But anyway, this one I gave 3 stars, so it's been the lowest rated so far. However, if you love action movies and you haven't seen this one yet, highly recommend. It also has John Malkovich. I don't know if I mentioned that. He's like the main villain. Also, I mentioned in Raising Arizona how that was filmed in places in Arizona I used to live, in particular one tiny town that is so random that it is written on the IMDb filming locations. Anyway, this one was filmed all over Utah, which I used to live in Utah. So we have Ogden, Mill Canyon, Wendover, which is technically Nevada, but it's right there on the border with Utah, as well as Moab and the Bonneville Salt Flats. And the Salt Flats, that scene is when they're like at Lanier Landing or something, called something like that. That scene though, I was like, wow, that looks exactly like the Salt Flats, which I went to visit right before we left Utah. Anyway, so I looked it up and it was the Bonneville Salt Flats. So that was kind of fun. So 2 movies now have been filmed in places I've lived, which I've also lived in the Los Angeles area and the Las Vegas area, but those are common filming locations, whereas Dudleyville, Arizona, and I mean, Utah, a lot of movies are filmed in Utah, specifically southern Utah, but to be filmed in like the Salt Lake Valley is more rare. So I was surprised by that with this movie. Anyway, enough rambling about filming locations. The next movie on my list, I was going to watch Snake Eyes, but I feel like I've done a lot of, I mean, Raising Arizona wasn't intense, but I've done 2 action movies, you know, these dramas, Face Off, and now Con Air. And I was gonna watch Snake Eyes, which I don't think it's action, but I think it is like tense drama as far as I know. And I decided to do something different, and I instead am going to do a romance, City of Angels from 1998. And I didn't have any romances on this list, even though Cage has been in romances. So at the last minute, I decided I am going to switch and go from Snake Eyes to City of Angels, which is Cage and Meg Ryan. Again, this is one I have seen before, but it was a long time ago. The only part I remember is the very end, so I know how it's going to end, but that's all I remember, so I'm excited to watch this one again. So I will see you after City of Angels. Also, my puppy joined me today. Isn't she so cute? All right, so I watched 2 more Nicolas Cage movies because I watched one yesterday on Sunday the 17th, but I forgot to film my video for it. So I will be doing the one for the movie I watched yesterday, while also talking about the movie I watched today. Anyway, so yesterday, I left off saying I was going to watch City of Angels, and I started City of Angels. I got 30 minutes in, and wow, was that movie boring. I also, maybe I'm just not a fan of Meg Ryan. I thought I was neutral towards her, but I realized that in the past year, I started You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, and City of Angels, and all 3 of those I did not finish. So maybe I'm just not a fan of Meg Ryan, apparently. But she is not the only one to blame with City of Angels, because I also just was not feeling Nicolas Cage's character or just him in this movie. I was not enjoying it. And yes, I only watched 30 minutes, but man, it felt longer than that. And I also went into it knowing the end, so I knew where things were going and what was going to happen. I just didn't remember the details of it. And yeah, I wasn't enjoying learning the details of it, so I did not finish it. And I instead went to a backup movie I had listed, which was The Family Man. And this one is one that my dad suggested for my Cage movie marathon. And this, again, I feel like it doesn't count to say like, I've seen this before, because yeah, I saw this movie before, but it was like 20 years ago now, and I honestly remembered nothing about it aside from the premise, which is a very cliche premise. So I could have remembered it simply because it's a cliche premise and not even remembered it from the fact that I'd seen it before. But anyway, technically I had seen this before, but honestly, I remembered absolutely nothing about it. This one is from 2000, and it stars Tia Leone alongside Nicolas Cage. And unlike Meg Ryan, I am a huge fan of Tia Leone. I think she's just so charismatic, and she's such a great actress, and I just love watching her on screen. Like Fun with Dick and Jane is a great movie. She's in that as well. But anyway, so Family Man is about a guy who, you know, the classic story about a guy who's too focused on greed and lust, and then something fantastical happens which helps him realize what really matters in life, and that is your family and the things that money can't buy. And I really enjoyed this movie, which I feel like I've said I really enjoyed this movie for every movie I've watched so far. But I really enjoyed all of them. Anyway, this one has some of the classic Cage monologues that I love, where, you know, he's getting angry and he's yelling something, and then he just really emphasizes like the last word or phrase and just like spits that last one out and just really yells it and emphasizes it. But then he also has some really tender, soft moments in this movie as well. And he's fantastic in all the scenes, regardless of what his mood is. And again, he and Tia Leone I thought had great chemistry, and I loved them together in this. And you know, was this predictable? Yes. Did it still make me tear up multiple times? Yes. And I will say the ending, it doesn't tie everything up in a bow necessarily, but you know, you can still kind of know where things are going. So I gave this one 4 stars. Part of the reason I didn't give it 5 stars because I did really enjoy it and love it, but as far as movies with this kind of theme, Groundhog Day is my favorite. That movie is amazing. It has everything. And it's the same message where it's the guy who's focused on money and woman, and then something fantastical happens, and then he learns what really matters in life. But yeah, as far as that goes, like Groundhog Day is like a 5-star movie. Whereas Family Man, I mean, they're different. Groundhog Day is definitely more comedic than Family Man was, but yeah, it's just hard not to compare ones like that. You know, Liar Liar is another one very similar. Yeah, so this one isn't as comedic, so maybe it's not fair to compare it. Anyway, I gave it 4 stars though. Really loved it. Highly recommend. It is Christmassy, so, but I mean, honestly, you can watch it year round. Moving on, because like I said, that was for yesterday's video, or yesterday's movie I forgot to film a video for. So today, I watched Adaptation, and this was one that I was really excited about, really looking forward to. And again, it is one I have seen before, but I saw it 10 years ago now. It was like 2010, so it's been like 12 years ago now. The main thing I remembered was just being blown away by Nicolas Cage's performance. And I also remember thinking that Donald Kaufman was a real person. So this movie was recommended to me by a friend at the time, and I remember the next day I was asking him something about Donald Kaufman, and then he was like, you know, Donald Kaufman wasn't a real character. But so that was the main thing I remembered from this movie, along with the fact that it's about orchids, sort of. Which, by the way, so this is a movie about Charlie Kaufman, a screenwriter who is a real person, and he is also a character in the story, but it is about him trying to adapt the book The Orchid Thief into a movie. But it's not a direct adaptation, obviously, because it's not an adaptation of The Orchid Thief. It's a movie about him trying to adapt The Orchid Thief. So even though it's not a direct adaptation, I am covering this for a book versus movie project that will be coming out later in May. And I'm glad I'm going to be covering this one because there's a lot to get into with this movie. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity of just really delving into it and researching it a bit more. But yeah, Nicolas Cage, he was nominated for an Oscar for this movie, but he didn't win. Adrien Brody won for The Pianist, which I remember seeing that. I would have to rewatch it though, but it seems insane that Nicolas Cage wouldn't have won because he plays the 2 main characters in this movie, because he plays twin brothers, and the 2 brothers are just so completely different, and Cage is just incredible in both roles. And he also doesn't have any of his classic Cage mannerisms in this. Like, you just forget you're watching Nicolas Cage, honestly, because he is just these people so completely. Which, to be fair, even though there's certain things about Nicolas Cage where it's like, you know, like with Family Man, where it's like, oh, that classic Cage angry monologue scene that I love, at the same time, even when he has those type of scenes that remind you you're watching Nicolas Cage, he still is just so versatile, and he is such a great actor that you're still just caught up in the performance. And I'm not constantly thinking, this is the 6th movie I've seen now, I have 4 more left, but I'm not constantly aware that I'm watching him, if that makes sense, because the movies have been good enough and his performance have been so great that I am just in it. There's some actors where when I'm watching it, I'm just constantly reminded and like aware that I'm watching a movie with whatever actor, because I feel like they're just not in the role enough. Anyway, that is not the case with Nicolas Cage. In Adaptation, he is incredible. And yeah, the story is very meta and very unlike any other movie you will watch, I would imagine. And yeah, I will be talking even more in depth about this in like 3 or 4 weeks for my book versus movie with The Orchid Thief and Adaptation. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, I guess that wraps it up on my thoughts for Adaptation. Oh, actually, I did want to say too, like, this is directed by Spike Jonze, starring Nicolas Cage, written by Charlie Kaufman. Like, that's such a great trio just right there. And then I also wanted to mention that Juan on Instagram, when I posted my thing about movie recommendations for this, Juan and the Instagram account Ink to Film both suggested Adaptation. So I wanted to give them a shout out. Juan is like Obi-Wan on Instagram. But anyway, so the next movie on the list is The Weatherman, which I am so excited about. I've been excited about all of these, to be honest. But this one, the only scene that I've seen, like maybe I saw more of it, but the only scene I remember is where Nicolas Cage's character is like insulted by another man, and the only like retort he can think of is it's wintertime, and so he slaps the other man with his glove, like how they would do it like in the 1800s. And so I just remember that scene and thinking it was so funny. And so I'm excited to watch this movie again. It's kind of like a weird offbeat comedy as far as I can recall. Yeah, really looking forward to it. So hopefully it will live up to my expectations. So I just watched The Weatherman, which is from 2005. This one is about Nicolas Cage's character. I forget his name now. Yeah, I don't remember his name, but he's a weatherman, and his business, his work life is going really well, but then his personal life is just a failure and falling apart. And it's a comedy, but it's like a dark comedy and like one of those awkward, uncomfortable comedies, because Nicolas Cage's character, even though when he's on camera, for the most part, he is, you know, he's a really successful weatherman, and Good Morning America, or Hello America, is wanting to have him as like a national weatherman. But then just in his personal life, he's just so awkward, and he's wanting to be liked by his dad, who is played by Michael Caine, and just, you know, trying to improve the relationships with his kids and fix his marriage, which is falling apart, has already fallen apart really. But yeah, and it has funny moments for sure, but then it also deals with these serious topics. And I thought it was a good mix for the most part. I felt like the movie, like the trailers almost make it out to be like this goofy comedy, and it's definitely not like a goofy comedy. But yeah, Cage was amazing in it. Michael Caine was great. We also have a young Nicholas Hoult and then Hope Davis as his wife. And yeah, I like this a lot. I would give it 4 stars, I think. I thought about 3, but I think it's deserves a higher than a 3-star. It's not a 5-star movie for me, so yeah, I think 4 stars, which I didn't rate Adaptation, but Adaptation is of course a 5-star read. Also, I realized I should have had this book on display this whole time. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, so I really enjoyed The Weatherman. I would recommend it. Yeah, this was a good one, and I like the ending too. It's not as predictable as you might think. You know, Nicolas Cage's character, there's times where he's definitely not that likable, but I think the movie did a good job. It just really, you know, you see things from his perspective and you can kind of understand why he is the way he is. Yeah, this was a good one and I would recommend it. And it's an underrated one too. I think on IMDb it has like a 6.6, and I was reading some reviews, and there's some people, like I was surprised how many people gave this like 8, 9, 10 stars. But then it also has some people in there who gave it like 1 star or 3 stars or something. But anyway, it's definitely one you should check out if you have not seen it. And then tomorrow's movie is Lord of War, which was also released in 2005, I believe. And this one, again, I remember seeing part of it, but I don't think I ever finished it. And the only reason I saw part of it was because it has Jared Leto, and I was a huge Jared Leto fan. So I remember seeing his scenes. Like, seems like there's a scene at Christmas time where like Jared Leto's character is like a drug addict and he's like doing something. I don't remember. But so the only parts I really saw were the scenes with Jared Leto, and he's not in that much of it. So I didn't really end up seeing much of it. And I honestly have no idea what it's about, aside from Jared Leto plays like a Nicolas Cage's brother who's hooked on drugs. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I've heard a lot of good things about it, so I'm excited to watch it, and I will check in with you tomorrow. So I watched Lord of War, which is from 2005. This was another one that was suggested by Juan on Instagram, as well as Alexander said this was one of his favorites. So those were 2 of the reasons why I watched it, because it originally wasn't on my list as movies to watch. But anyway, this is about Yuri, who is a arms dealer, gun runner, and that's basically what it's about. And he is someone who is he's able to detach himself from like the violence selling guns and ammo causes, because he's like, you know, these wars and this is gonna happen whether I'm involved or not, so why shouldn't I be involved and be making some money on it? And so he's not a likable character, and I saw someone in the comments being like, or in like a review saying something about how you catch yourself rooting for this guy who like is not a good person. And I was like, I wasn't rooting for him, so I did not like him at all. But you're not supposed to like him, right? Because he's kind of heartless. I mean, they do humanize him, but yeah, honestly, when I got to the half point in this movie, I thought of not finishing it. Not because he was unlikable, and I don't, you know, I like watching movies about unlikable people as long as I'm intrigued by them and they interest me. Whereas the character of Yuri, I wasn't that intrigued by him and I didn't really care what happened to him. And so I thought of stopping, but then I was like, I'm already an hour in, I may as well finish it. And so I did finish it. And I'm glad I did, because having seen the movie all the way through, I think I liked it better than if I just stopped halfway. And I didn't know how this was going to end, so I had that. I guess I did care to some extent because I was a little curious how it would end. But the movie also has, the Interpol agent played by Ethan Hawke who is chasing him down, so you have that going on. But it's honestly not like the super action-packed, fast-paced movie, so that's a good thing for the most part, because that doesn't really interest me anyway. But ultimately, I'd give this movie a 3.5 stars, I think. It was interesting too that this was produced by like Saturn Films, which is Nicolas Cage's production company. And US production companies would not pay for this movie to be made. And if you've seen the ending of this movie, you can kind of understand why. So I thought that was really interesting, like knowing the backstory. And this is based on a true story. Like from what I read, it seems like Yuri is kind of a mix of different people that are real. So yeah, when all is said and done, I'm glad I watched this movie. I watched it last night, so I'm filming this the day after, but it is one that I've been thinking about ever since I finished it. So that says something right there, right? And the performances are all superb, great performances. And I loved the very opening scene, like the opening scene to this movie, I thought was excellent. And that definitely drew me in. And also I like the soundtrack too. And yeah, a very well done movie. We do have Jared Leto, as I remembered. He's in the first 20 minutes, he's there a lot in the first 20 minutes, but from there he's in a bit less. So I think I must have only seen those beginning parts. And then when I realized Jared Leto wasn't going to be in the second half so much, I'd stopped watching it because I honestly didn't remember much aside from those beginning scenes when he is in more of it. But anyway, so yeah, I will say I didn't love this movie. Like I said, I would give it 3 or 3.5 stars. I'm glad I watched it. I don't know if I'll be watching it again, but it was interesting and it is one that will make you think. And I really love the ending as well. Anyway, so that is Lord of War. And then now we are fast forwarding 8 years, moving to 2013 to watch the movie Joe. That will be the next one on my list. And then from there, I'm jumping ahead almost 10 years for Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is about to be released. So I'm skipping these huge chunks of time in Nicolas Cage's career, which isn't ideal. But let's be honest, a lot of the movies he was in, in the 2010s in particular, but starting in the late 2000s going into the 2010s, he was in a ton of movies, but a lot of them just weren't very good. And they're ones that I have just zero interest in seeing, especially when they're these action type movies. I'm not interested. And I had a really hard time picking what movie was going to be the last one I watch. And I had a few different ones that I was going to watch from 2018, but then I ended up deciding to go with Joe. This is one that was based on a book, and so I was going to save it for when I do a book versus movie, but I'm just going to watch it for this. And Keith Phipps, the author of Age of Cage, spoke pretty highly of Joe. It's one of the movies that he elaborated on a bit more. And so because he had liked it, I decided that it would be the final one I watch. So yeah, kind of crazy. I only have one more movie left to watch at home, and then it is off to the theaters to go see Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So kind of crazy. This Nicolas Cage marathon journey is almost coming to an end. And I would like to thank you guys for watching this far into the video. This video is going to end up being an hour long, I think. So thank you for watching this far into it. I hope you've enjoyed it. And, I'm sure I said this in the intro, but yeah, comment down below your thoughts on these movies that I'm covering. And if you agree with my rating or if you think it deserves higher, as well as telling me what some of your favorite Nicolas Cage movies are that maybe I don't talk about in this video. But yeah, so you will see me tomorrow where I will be talking about my thoughts on the movie Joe. And then after that, it's Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I am very excited about. I will see you tomorrow. And yeah. Okay, so I watched Joe. As I said, it is from 2013, and it is about a man named Joe who is played by Nicolas Cage. And he's a guy who is, he has his inner demons and his checkered past, but he is trying to just live a better life and stay out of trouble. And he's a good person, but he just, has these inner demons of his. And then a family moves into town, and there is a 15-year-old boy played by Ty Sheridan, who I covered in the Tender Bar. And Ty Sheridan's dad is an abusive alcoholic. And so Joe takes Ty Sheridan's character under his wing. And that's basically the premise of the story. But I loved this movie. I thought it was fantastic. It was so powerful. There are just so many incredible scenes. I watched this yesterday. It's Friday morning, by the way. But so I watched this yesterday, and it is one I have been thinking about ever since. And I loved it so much that I know I talked about doing adaptation for a book first movie, and I still probably will do like a short, more unofficial type book first movie video for it. But I've decided that I will do an official book first movie for Joe because the movie was just so incredible. I just want to spend more time with the story and read the book and then do an official book first movie for it because it is definitely a movie that more people should be watching. And Cage's performance is incredible in this. And Ty Sheridan is also amazing. He was pretty young in this movie, like 17, I think. And then, which I, I should save some of this for my book first movie video, but the guy who plays Ty Sheridan's dad was a local, because this was filmed in like South Texas or somewhere in Texas. And he was a local, and apparently he was like a homeless person, and then he was cast in this role. But he was amazing as well. And yeah, like I said, just so many incredible scenes. And it is a movie that will stick with you. It is like sort of Clint Eastwood-esque, like the character of Joe is reminiscent of some Clint Eastwood characters. And I think they were very aware of that similarity because there's even a part where Nicolas Cage is teaching Ty Sheridan on how to do a cool look. And it's basically, they don't say Clint Eastwood, but they're basically trying to do a Clint Eastwood expression as a way to look cool. So I'm assuming that's like their nod to the fact that the character of Joe is very similar to some of Clint Eastwood's characters. But yeah, this was amazing. You should definitely watch this if you have not. And my book first movie video for it will be at the end of May, so that gives you a good amount of time to watch this movie before then. So yeah, this one was a 5-star movie. Also, my voice is getting like all scratchy. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know why that's happening. But anyway, so as I said, it is Friday morning. I watched Joe yesterday, but my hair was super frizzy, so I didn't want to film. But so in a little bit, and a little while later today, I will be going to the theater to see Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I'm very excited. So the next time you see me, I will be giving my review for that, which by the way, the director of Joe, David Gordon Green or David Michael Green, I forget his name now, but he is in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and he plays the director, so kind of playing himself in a way. And I didn't realize that until after I watched Joe. I was looking up the director. He's also done a lot of Danny McBride comedies, which is interesting, which Joe is very different. It's not comedic at all. And there's just this ominous music and this like foreboding tone to the whole movie. So not at all a comedy. But anyway, so I thought it was funny that I happened to watch the movie he did with Nicolas Cage and then he's gonna be in this new movie. And I know very little about Massive Talent. Like I know Nick Cage plays himself and he's invited to a birthday party of a fan. And that's all I know. I haven't seen any trailers. So I'm pretty excited. And yeah, I'll see you then. Okay, so I watched the last movie on my Nicolas Cage list, and that was The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which came out today, Friday, April 22nd. And I really enjoyed this movie. It is a lot of fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it is very, tongue-in-cheek and very self-aware. It's formulaic, but that's kind of the point, is it's meant to be formulaic. And I thought Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal, I really enjoyed their dynamic with each other, so that was really fun to watch. The two other movies that this movie made me think of was Pineapple Express and Adaptation. And now both of those movies, Adaptation is fresh in my mind because I watched it a few days ago, and then Pineapple Express is directed by the guy who directed Joe, and he was even in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I mentioned, David Gordon Green. So maybe that was just in my mind, and so I was putting it in the movie. But it still did have that kind of vibe. But then it's like Adaptation because it's, like I said, it's very like formulaic, but that's the point of it because, I don't want to get into spoilers, but they're writing a script and the things in the script end up happening in the movie. And so that part made me think of Adaptation. Plus you also get two Nicolas Cages because he has this alter ego of his that appears. And so then you have two Cages on screen. And so it was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I am in love with the movie. I would give it 4 stars, I think. So I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I know I've said that already, but I liked it as much as you can like something without loving it. But overall, it is one I would recommend if you're a fan of Nicolas Cage or if you're a fan of those, Pineapple Express type comedies. You should definitely go see it. Obviously, there are a lot of references to his past movies, so I'm glad I did this movie marathon leading up to seeing this. Although there were a few movies that were referenced where I was like, man, I should have watched that one too. Guarding Tess is mentioned, and I thought of watching that one, but then I didn't. Anyway, so yeah, this was really enjoyable and I would recommend it. It is very tongue-in-cheek, very meta, but that's kind of what you expect, right? Because you have Nicolas Cage playing a version of Nicolas Cage. And that wraps it up for my Nicolas Cage movie marathon. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I had so much fun doing this. And I know my channel is more book related. I mean, I have my book first movie, which obviously is about movies as well, but outside of book first movie, my content leans more towards books. So I know this is, I'm worried this isn't going to be what my subscribers are wanting to see because they're probably expecting book related content from me. But obviously because I do book first movie videos, people are aware that I'm into movies as well. And so it was nice to take a break from reading so much and focus more on another medium I love, which is movies. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with others. And comment down below what your favorite Nicolas Cage movie is, especially if it's one that I haven't talked about. And again, I think I said this earlier, but let me know if you agree or disagree with my ratings for these movies, which by the way, my two favorites from the last 10 movies that I watched, I think I gave a few of them 5 stars, but my two favorites though would be Vampire's Kiss, which that was the second one I watched, and yet I kept thinking about it like days into this. Even though I'd watched so many movies in between, my mind still kept returning to Vampire's Kiss because that movie is just something else. It's so crazy. It's like, I know people have compared it to American Psycho, and I can see that, but it's just very unlike anything I've ever seen, I would say, and Cage is full Cage, and it's an experience, and you have to watch it. And then my other favorite would be Joe, which I watched yesterday, so it's still fresh in my mind, but that one, yeah, it was just so powerful, so incredible, so underrated. Like, you don't hear anybody talking about it. It came out 10 years ago. Were people talking about it at the time? I don't know. I never heard about it, but they should have been because it was so good and I highly recommend it. And like I said, my book first movie for that will be out the end of May. I'm so excited to read that book and then I'm going to rewatch the movie and just really get into that. So I'm really excited about that. But I've enjoyed all of these movies. The one I rated the lowest, I think, was Con Air, which I gave 3 stars, but it was still a fun time. You know, I guess City of Angels, I didn't even finish that one, so I don't know if that counts. I didn't rate it on Letterboxd, but anyway, I had so much fun doing this marathon, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like this, comment down below, share this with your friends, follow me on Instagram. You can also follow me on Letterboxd. My name is just Why the Book Wins. I think I'm pretty new to Letterboxd. I just signed up, so I'm still trying to figure it out. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you are not subscribed, and I will see you next time. Bye.